First definition, inconsistent. Inconsistent is two lines that do not cross. Inconsistent is basically parallel lines. Consistent is two lines that cross. So consistent would be any two lines that are not parallel. If two lines are consistent, they're either independent or dependent. Independent lines are two different lines or equations, and dependent lines is the same line or same equation. Title of the first section is Define the Following. We'll use the definitions that we just did to define two lines that are on a graph. The first graph is two lines that go side by side, or they're parallel lines. The definition of these lines, since they're parallel, they're two lines that do not cross, the definition would be inconsistent. Inconsistent again are two parallel lines. Second question and second graph are two lines that cross. Two lines that cross are consistent. If you have two lines that cross that are consistent, consistent lines are either independent or dependent. Looking at the graph, we have two separate lines. If we have two separate lines or two different lines, it would be consistent and independent. And last question for the section. We have one line and another line on top of that same line. These two lines do cross. They cross at every single point that they have in common. So since they do cross each other, these two lines are consistent. And again, if you have consistent lines, consistent is either independent or dependent. In this case, we have one line on top of the same line, which means it's the same line or same equation, so it would be dependent. So the final answer, consistent and dependent. Title of the next section is Graph and Define the following. In this section, we'll graph two lines and define them using the definitions. First question, first equation is y equals 2x minus 4. And second equation, y equals negative 3x plus 1. And again, we'll graph each of these lines. After we graph, we'll define using the definitions. Both of these lines are in mx plus b form, or slope-intercept form. The first line, 2x minus 4, m is equal to 2, or 2 over 1, and b, the y-intercept, is negative 4. Second equation, m, the slope, is negative 3, or negative 3 over 1, and b is positive 1. Once we have the slope and the y-intercept, we can graph each of these. The first line, the y-intercept, starts at negative 4. And the slope is 2 over 1, so we'll go up 2 and over 1. Second equation, the y-intercept is positive 1. And the slope is negative 3 over 1, so we'll go down 3 spots and over one spot. To define these lines cross at a single point, which means it's consistent. Consistent means the lines do cross, and the lines are two separate lines or two different equations, which means they're independent. And that would be the answer to the question. Second question and last question for the section. First equation is 9x minus 6y equals 24. And second equation, 6x minus 4y equals 16. These lines are in standard form, where we have x and y on the same side. If we wanted to, we could graph these using intercepts. Intercepts is where we'll plug zeros in for x and y. If we plug a 0 in for the first equation for x, we can solve for y and find the y-intercept. 9 times 0 would cancel. Negative 6y equals 24. We divide by negative 6, and y equals negative 4. Solving the same equation, but this time putting a 0 for the y value, we can find the x-intercept. Negative 6 times 0 would cancel. 9x equals 24. We can divide by 9. And x equals... 9 doesn't go into 24, but we can reduce. And it reduces to 8 over 3. So the two intercepts, y equals negative 4, x equals 8 over 3. We can use those in graph just a minute for the first line. Solving the second equation, 6x minus 4y equals 16. Again, we can plug a 0 in for x. Six times 0 would cancel, dividing by negative 4, and y equals negative 4. Solving the same equation again, but a 0 for y this time. Negative 4 times 0 would cancel, dividing by 6, and x equals, reducing 16 over 6 would be 8 over 3. Graphing these two lines. The first line has a y-intercept at negative 4. And also has a x-intercept at 8 over 3. 8 over 3 is the same as 2 and 2/3. So in between 2 and 3. Graphing the second line, you'll notice the intercepts are the same points. Y equals negative 4 again, and x equals 8 over 3. So we'll have the same line on top of the line. And to define these, if you have the same line on top of the line, it crosses at every single point, so these lines are consistent. And since we have the same line or the same intercepts, these two lines are also dependent because they have the same equation or same graph. So the answer would be consistent and dependent.